On this, I'm joined by Bilgehan Ozturk. He is a researcher at the SETA Foundation for Political, Economic and Social Research. He joins us from Ankara. Thank you for joining us on the program as we continue our special coverage of Turkey's Operation Spring Shield. I've heard just detailed those three other operations that Turkey conducted in Syria, and now we're in the early days of this new Operation Spring Shield. Give us a sense of how different this operation operationally. What are we looking at here? Because we've heard of Turkey downing Syrian jets, Turkish drones in the air. What are we looking at?
Well, there is a main difference between this one and the previous three operations, but also there are also similarities between all these military operations. First of all, all of these operations were defensive in nature. Before conducting all these operations, Turkey was cornered in a sense. So again, we are experiencing a similar process here, but this time it is different in terms of the adversary the operation is facing. So before in the Operation Euphrates Shield, it was a non-state actor, a terrorist organization. It was Daesh. In Operation Olive Branch, it was the YPG, again a non-state actor, a terrorist organization, and again in Operation Peace Spring, it was again a YPG, again non-state armed actor. But now this one is facing a hybrid coalition of adversaries, which are Syrian regime forces, which are Iranian-backed Shiite militias, again non-state armed actors, and they are to a certain extent, actually to a great extent, backed by Russian air support. But after this. Start of this operation, it is not clear whether the Russian air cover will be as staunch as it used to be. But the main difference is this hybrid coalition of adversaries facing Turkish armed forces along with Syrian opposition fighters.
Mm-hmm. So how much strength could the Assad regime possibly have left as far as its military capability? The Turkish Minister of Defense came out earlier and said since this operation began on Thursday, more than 2,000 Syrian regime troops have been neutralized. A drone, two Syrian regime jets were brought down today. Number of helicopters, tanks, tens of howitzers. I mean, how does the Syrian regime, the military, compare to Turkey's, which is the second largest standing military in NATO?
The Syrian regime forces, I'm talking about the military forces, is not a big deal in terms of the military might. What we are talking about here is the huge manpower that coalition is enjoying. We're talking about a coalition here. We're talking about Pakistani, Afghan militias, Fatimiyun, Zainabun brigades. We're talking about Iraqi Hashd-e-Shaabi militants. We're talking about here Al-Quds Brigade, Palestinian Al-Quds Brigade. We're talking about Lebanese Hezbollah forces. So in terms of manpower, there's no shortage of manpower in the ranks of Syrian regime coalition, but in the past, couple of days, the Turkish armed forces has been inflicting a huge damage on the ranks of Syrian regime forces. As you mentioned, more than 2,000 people have been killed. But more important than that is actually Turkish armed forces are targeting the commanders and officers of Syrian regime forces, not just Syrian regime forces proper, but at the same time, for the past 48 hours, the commanders of Iranian-backed Shiite militias have been also targeted. So it is not a sustainable process for Syrian regime to keep up the fight against Turkish armed forces. So we're probably will face a limited victory for Turkish armed forces as a result of this operation. And on the March the 5th, there will be probably a ceasefire or an agreement which would be much more favorable on Turkey's favor.
Right. So do you think that a diplomatic solution is possible still at this point?
What we mean by diplomatic solution depends on our expectations. My expectation is, as a result of this, talks in Moscow, upcoming talks in Moscow, will be the maintaining of demarcation of Sochi memoranda before, and the Syrian regime forces will be withdrawn from beyond the Sochi lines. And after that, I think Turkish and Russian and Iranian sides will start talking. And actually, we're experiencing a different dynamic here compared to before, because what made Iranian President Rouhani call for a meeting to Turkey's President Erdogan is the fact that Iranian-backed Shiite militias also were inflicted huge levels of damages. So as long as Turkey inflicts this extent of military damage on its adversaries, I think it is even closer to achieving more favorable results. And it doesn't have to be a diplomatic solution, but there will be a ground to at least sit down and talk. Because for the past a considerable period of time, the Russian and Iranian side and the regime side is not talking. They are just undertaking. They are just performing brinkmanship. They're just pressuring Turkey to put up with what they put up with their maximalist demand. So it will create a ground at least to sit down and talk over.
All right, we'll leave it there. Bilgehan Ozturk, he's a researcher at the SETA Foundation, joining us from Ankara. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today. And now.